Hi, all. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I think there may be a few more people rolling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started because time is of the essence with this short discussion today. Thank you all for joining us after the long holiday weekend. For those of you that aren't familiar, I'm Danielle Bremer. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Lean Techniques. If it's your first time here, welcome. As a reminder, Lean Bites are short 16-minute talks where we work to provide you with simple, practical tips and techniques you can start applying within your organization today. Couple housekeeping items. If you have questions throughout today's talk, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will be monitoring them and addressing them if time allows, or we'll make sure to offer insights around them in a follow-up email. And do us a huge favor at the end of this session and provide us with some feedback in the survey that will pop up at the end of the discussion. With that, I'm really excited to get started and introduce you to Jared McMurray, Executive and Product Consultant here at Lean Techniques. And he's going to discuss giving your product team purpose, key questions to inspire action. Jared, over to you.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody joining today. I know many of you are probably product managers working on product teams. Some of you are leaders in your organization. And this is really for you, especially for those of you who might be responsible for P&L on a business capability, and you rely on technology to meet your strategies. And the main challenge at the beginning of all of this is what's the vision? And I'm sure for many of you, you've heard this question many times, and you think back to the annual assembly where you went through the strategy for the year, you tried to connect the dots, you distributed that slide deck, and then each quarter you borrow from that slide deck and you talk about where you're at, and still you hear people ask, well, what's the vision? And there's many reasons for that. For one, the list of perceived promises is just overwhelming. We have more than we can do. We get really lost in the details. We have a history of measuring progress on delivery. So we don't really think of the results and where we're going. We often think about, have we built the thing? When's the next thing going to be delivered? And we don't tend to think about what value are we providing. Sometimes we do. We do the hard work of figuring out what our objectives are, and we set it, and then we just forget about it. We don't go back to it throughout the year. Maybe halfway through the year we look back at it, but again, we get kind of lost in the output. And then, of course, we fall in love with the thing. We fall in love with the idea, and we kind of forget that there's value in measuring whether that idea is really adding value. And so we're going to go over some key questions that hopefully help pull people out of the weeds and will help you kind of walk people back into the strategy and into the vision. And so this first question is, how do we know this thing helps people achieve an important objective? So how do we know our customers get value out of this? I was talking to a colleague yesterday, and she was telling me a story about a team she was working with, and they had a senior leader come to the team, and a competitor was discontinuing capability and no longer going to allow people to purchase this capability online. The team was asked if they could turn around and build that capability out so that we could take that market share over. And so the initial response from the team, and it's kind of our gut response, is to figure out, how are we going to build that? What aren't we going to build if we build that? What do we need to build that by that date? And one of the product leaders associated with that team asked the question, do we even know if our customers will get value out of it? And that question alone kind of changed the activities. So it changed the actions that the team was taking. And rather than figure out how to build it, they figured out if they should build it. And they went out and they talked to their distribution network. And what they found was there wasn't a lot of value in that, but there was a value in all these other problems that they didn't even know about. And so they were able to kind of restock their backlog with things that were more valuable to that network, and they didn't invest in the new objective. And of course, then the conversation with the stakeholder was more about the evidence they had gathered, the things they had measured to measure value, and in the end, they were able to kind of table that capability. So it's important to know if people will find it valuable, but it's important also to know that they enjoy using it. And this reminds me of a team I worked with for a while that had a mobile app. And the first kind of iteration of the mobile app, the goal was just to have a mobile app. It was kind of something our competitors had. We needed to have one. And so this team inherited this app after it had sat and collected dust for a while. Because there were a bunch of features that competitors were adding to their apps that we didn't have. And so the team started to build those features out. And I think halfway through, there was a new product person assigned to that product. And they asked the question, how do we know if people are using this app? And the team hadn't really thought about that much. And so they started looking at the engagement metrics that they had been collecting and not reviewing. And what they found was there were people using the app. There were more people using the desktop version. And what they also found is people using the app tended to abandon tasks. And so they went out and tried to find out why. And what turned out is the features that were available in the mobile app were valuable to people, but the app itself was so painful that people abandoned it and went back to the desktop app. And so that team, the actions they took, again, changed. And so their behaviors changed and their backlog changed. And they started focusing on designing a better app before they went back to adding any of the additional features. And so simply measuring things like that changed the kind of the future and the vision of that product. So its first two bullets are all about the customer, right? Will they find it valuable? Do they enjoy using it? Do they enjoy that experience? But there's another aspect of this that balances that out, and that's how do we know that this thing helps our organization achieve an important objective? So you're trying to grow your business in one way or another. Technology fits into that strategy. How do we know? Um, and so I recently had the privilege of sitting in on a quarterly review with a group of product managers who were going over their previous quarter's key results, looking forward to their future key results. And one of the product managers had some new key results for the next quarter that were related to a new application they had created. So they were replacing a legacy application. They wanted to provide a better experience. They also wanted to make the experience kind of part of this marketplace they were building out. And so his key results were centered around usage, engagement, adoption. They were really competing against the legacy app, so they had both of them running at the same time, and they were hoping people would choose this new app. And it seemed, and they were good measures, and it seemed like they were on the right track. But one of the key leaders in that organization was kind of pondering something, and you could tell. And so the product manager prompted her and said, you know, what's on your mind? And what she said really allowed everyone to take a step back and look at the broader vision for this entire marketplace they were creating. So in the future, she didn't want people to have to go to this place to do these things. In the future, she wanted this whole experience to be proactive, where we were using data to anticipate those needs and help people understand what they needed before they even had to go look for it. And so while those key results were good for now, if we were still measuring those as success measures a year from now, we really would be missing the boat on what that future vision was for the entire marketplace. And what I loved about that, and I know there were others who loved that conversation in the room, I talked to them afterwards, but what I loved about that was we didn't really talk a lot about the widgets or how we built the widgets or maybe even what the widgets looked like. What we talked about was not moving the goalpost, but how we were moving the ball down the field and the ultimate vision of what we wanted that application to be. It was a powerful moment, and I think it allowed everyone to kind of see how their products fit into this marketplace and fit into that future vision. So these key questions will help you figure out, do people find this valuable? Do they enjoy using this thing? Does it make sense for our organization? And they don't they don't talk about feasibility at all. They don't talk about how soon can you build this. And so it allows people really to understand what that vision is. Now, some things to consider. If your organization today doesn't really talk about those kind of measures, more value-driven things, or what happens after delivery, then you might want to meet one-on-one with your product manager or your leaders, people close to the team, because asking those kind of questions in a large group, if you don't normally talk about that, can kind of feel like an ambush. You know, you have a set of success measures that everyone's agreed on, and now we're kind of changing what those measures are. So one-on-one with your product manager, you can kind of come to terms with what you both agree success looks like, both in the short term and long term. Over communicate what you value. So those annual kind of assemblies where you go over your strategy for the year, those are valuable. And those quarterly town halls where you talk about that, that's valuable. But those hallway conversations you have with people that you see every day are also valuable. Jumping into team events and making sure they understand what you find valuable, that helps over communicate what you measure success as. And it kind of forces you to turn the question around on yourself as well. So when you're having conversations with your peer group, ask some of those questions about what projects you're talking about or initiatives you're discussing. If you are a leader in your organization and you've got some stories to tell, point out when data has proved you wrong or proved you right. The stories, so if you have examples like the ones I shared, those stories mean a lot to people. Humility in using that evidence and showing how evidence has proved you wrong can go a long way with a group of people. Be an active participant in team events. So this is a big one, I think. Often we kind of check out in some of those demos. So you have maybe stakeholder demos that you attend, or maybe there's some sort of quarterly report out that you attend. Your active participation in those means a great deal to the teams who are reporting out. So if your silence kind of means you agree with what they're doing. So if they're off base and you're not calling that out, or if you don't understand the direction you're going and you're not discussing it, then you're going to run into something down the line and it's going to cause a lot of frustration. And finally, you celebrate when your teams run measurable experiments. So if your teams can answer the question of, do our customers find these things valuable? Do they enjoy the experience? And does it relate to our strategy? Then celebrate the experiments they're running to prove that out. They're essentially gathering evidence, gathering the data to make sure that you're making the right bets and you're investing in the right things. So I know that all seems simple, but it's all things you can do right away. Maybe you're already asking those questions in your organization, and that's great. If you aren't, again, think about pulling somebody aside and having that conversation. It's something you can do this afternoon, and it'll maybe change the way you talk about the things you're trying to deliver. So I don't know if we have any questions in the chat, but I don't have any more content. So I hope you found this helpful. Again, if you think of a question, please reach out. You have our contact information. Appreciate your time today. I know this seems like a simple solution, but asking those questions will really unfold a lot of things. So I appreciate you and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Really appreciate that. And given there's no questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. So thanks all for attending. And as a reminder, the survey will pop up. Appreciate your feedback. It does help us curate upcoming sessions. And with that, I'll remind you that next year, since we're just a few days away from the new year, we will be hosting Zach Harden, who will be talking to us about influencing others regardless of title and position. So if you're looking for more information, check out our website or get checked in with our email distribution so you guys can be aware of those upcoming sessions. Happy holidays all and Happy New Year.